Thank you. I am Tiranee and I would like to share with you some updates about AI and what we expect to see within the context of insurance. And whenever we talk about AI, I have to talk about trusted AI because how can we understand AI and gain trust? First, let me share with you what Big Data organization is. We are part of the public organization under the EDE. We have about 200 strong people working under tech. And our mission is, first, we want to integrate the public service data and provide the analytics based on the data in order to prepare new analysis and AI plus data result to support the government. And this is our main role. We connect with environment, health, and tourism data, for example, to make use in the public sector. Secondly, if in the market they need somebody to help them with the analytics, we work as the bridge. And we also help building the big data skill and know-how and also AI. So those are about the AI. Let me jump right in because I don't have a lot of time. So whenever we talk about AI, sometimes people think about ChatGPT because that is what makes AI becoming the spotlight. But whenever we talk about AI, there are many aspects of AI. In summary, there are three main categories of AI. In the past, we used to use the data slide or machine learning or big data analytics. These are actually the same traditional AI that we used to. They have been used in analysis in the past. We sometimes use the AI to help us find data or patterns in the spreadsheets and use these formula that we found for other analysis. But that's traditional AI. But now we have generative AI where it consolidated and replicate the way we think, the way our brains work, like the way we speak. We use the labeled data by human to teach AI. So AI understand how humans think, so AI can generate the result following how we think. So when we say, can you help drawing Professor Tiranee's picture or portrait in Van Gogh style? In order to do so, they need to know how Van Gogh draw his picture and how Tiranee looks like. That is generative AI in a quick summary. And lastly, which is more popular nowadays, is agentic AI. Agentic AI is actually a workflow system. It's an autonomous decision-making system that allows us to go through the workflow using these bots and AI to help us go through smaller tasks and connect all of them together in a workflow that allows automatic system such as call center and other workflow. This is called agentic AI. Now let's go back to traditional machine learning or analytic AI as we used to know. What do we mean by that? I believe that everybody heard about in personal life insurance, especially if you are in InsurTech. It doesn't matter if it's auto, health, accident, general insurance. Many times, it's complicated. I don't really buy insurance. Whenever I have to buy health insurance, there are so many conditions you have to go through, and sometimes what they recommend to us is not very personalized. So what we do is we can use the data pattern to help us with the recommendation system. Machine learning in simple words. It's just like when you watch Netflix, the system can recommend the movie that you might interest because they have already segmented their customer into many, many segments. They have enough customer database and they check your interaction with the platform and they will detect your behavior and similar people in the segments. And if other people in the same segments watch the movie, it will recommend the same movie to you. This is how they measure your behavior by the interaction with the platform. And the platform leverage on the data behavior to recommend the product or services to you. Insurance can also do the same by using analytics AI. Let's say if you have lots of portfolios, and especially if you are a bank, you might have so many types of insurance. Sometimes you know that the same member in the family buy the same insurance, so you can sell the same insurance, and so does the stock and other products. You can collect all the behavioral data that can be leveraged and detect the people's pattern in this aspect. If you have customer profiles in many aspects, and if your data is complete enough, this is what you can do. For example, if you have customer segmentations, let's say we have A, B, and C segments, X, Y, Z, these can be any factors, any profiles, any details that you are using, and you store it in the historical data. In the past, we know that you cannot go through all of these lines by yourself. It is practically impossible to detect the patterns. Even if they have all the patterns for a group, they don't know what are the actual data. But if you are using AI, it can go through all the statistics, all the sales, and they can create this formula or a model, which is the tree chart on the right. They understand the people's purchasing pattern within the same database based on the historical data. And now when you have a new applicant and then you can conduct some survey, and when you start getting some data, you can use these data using the model, and the model can help you predict whether if the customer is classified as Group A, for example. Group A can be anything or Class A. Okay. So if you ask me what analytics AI is, this is how we use it to study the patterns in the available data or the previous profiles or historical data that you have, and then you can turn it into mathematical model or what we normally call model, and you can use this model to predict new customers or new applicants. We can use this for customer segmentations, recommendation programs, and etc. But whenever we talk about analytics AI, the data is not just one database or it's not just one spreadsheet. It can be many things. And moreover, we can also use AI for anomaly detections. We already provide some services like NHSO. For example, we go through the claim data from NHSO. Sometimes we know that the hospital say that they cannot claim because they have some error code. Let's call it error code C. And I don't know what error code C is, but with AI, we can screen the C error pattern. And rather than having the auditors to go through this, we can reject some of the cases directly. We can accept some of the cases directly. So we have less workload for the auditors to go through. These are some of the use cases for anomaly detections. And that's the same as the credit card companies calling you, because they already have the filter system and they will go through the anomaly usage whenever they detect some uncommon behavior. And the data can also tell you if the behavior is not normal and tell you in advance. We can also use this in the context of non-spreadsheet data. For example, this is what makes this very good. Let's say if you sell health insurance and the customer can give you the biometrics, like if they regularly they check their weight, they check their blood pressure, they check all the biometrics and the blood works, and they send it to you every month. You might be able to provide them a special offer package based on the data that they use, because you have the customer data. Some countries already did this, such as they use the wristband trackers, and if they allow the insurance company to have access to the data, it doesn't affect the privacy, right? And it allows the insurance company to gain better information. And let's say if you are working in logistics, if you have a truck, we know that lots of truck drivers are getting into accident because of so many reasons. Actually, if the company gladly install these sensors just right behind the steering wheel, the AI system can help detecting the driver. They know if they are falling asleep before they are even feeling sleepy. Because I always standing and watch my students and how they look like. I know if you are falling asleep, and I can measure if you are interested in my conversation. I can tell that you are about to fall asleep, just like the AI. And if the AI can detect the driver with enough data, it can train the AI system to detect the sleepy driver. And if AI could detect if the driver is about to fall asleep, there are so many things we can do, isn't it? We can alert the driver so they don't fall asleep. And if they can do so, you can have a cheaper insurance because they have this, anti-sleeping system. And speaking of driving, you can actually attach lots of sensors to the car. And we know if their driving behavior, do they speed? Do they take sharp turn? Do they hit the brake very quickly and strongly? It can all be detected with sensor. And with enough data, it will be easier for us to prepare an insurance policy for the driver. Or let's say if I work in a very old building and there's lots of water leakage and nobody really provide you this insurance anymore because we know that you have to pay millions of baht to fix some of the leakages. But can we detect it preemptively? Yes. We can check maybe the pressure in the pipe or maybe some of the curvature in the pipe But actually, in practice, you cannot really go through all the pipelines. But for the new building, yes, they can detect it with the sensor. And the sensor can give you the alerts. If you have to drill into the wall, at least you need to know which sensor is breaking. It's notifying. You need to know where you drill into. And that is a possible case. So you can avoid the mistakes. So these are some of the analytics AI use cases. It can do a lot more than spreadsheet and database. Next, generative AI. Nowadays, people think about ChatGPT, but there are actually many generative AI. There are Perplexity and Gemini and many more. People use this for searching and summarizing ideas and to help them write new content. And there are many questions about this. At schools, if the students are using AI to do their homework, they don't learn anything, right? So should we or should we not ban the AI in school? This is a very big question I always ask myself. If it were your children, do you stop your children using AI? No. My answer is no, because on the day they will graduate and they enter the workforce, they need to know how to use AI in order to survive in the new world. We cannot stop them from training how to use AI. But the question is how. We want them to learn, but they don't learn if they use AI. The main thing is, you need to change the way you check for the homework. You cannot just go through the result. You cannot just tell them whether if they get A, B, C, and D. You have to check their prompt script, for example, if they are using prompt, because prompt writing really tell if they understand the content. Secondly, you need to validate or verify the facts after you get the prompt's answer. Do they validate the source of data? Or how can they prevent hallucination, right? AI can hallucinate. How can people prevent hallucination? We heard that Deloitte has been sued by the Australian government because they are using AI, and they announced that they will use the AI to support the plan, but they didn't follow the fact validation protocol. So some of the data wasn't facts, and the staffs got sued. This is how we are using AI, and we don't know how to use the AI properly. The question is not to use AI, but the question is how to use it properly. Today, these are some of the major AI at the moment. Back in 2022, it was when ChatGPT launched. It was a very big AI boom. And in 2023, we started to see new names coming into the market. It was a big fight. And after that, in 2024, there were a lots of hallucination AI cases, which wasn't a strange thing. Don't forget that we used the word generative because it generates new data based on the existing data. Hallucination is not really a bug. As generative AI, it is one of their features because they need to generate new content, and they were afraid that they may not get facts because people start questioning whether if we can trust AI. What AI governance do we need in order to prevent the issues? And lastly, we started to see multimodal AI, like they are using multimedia for the AI modeling and also the decision making, and it's up and coming. So these are some of the use cases for generative AI. And when we say agentic AI, I already provide you some introduction. Every time when we work, there's a workflow, right? For example, if you have to travel overseas, I need to submit my documents for compensation and benefits. That's the simple workflow. But if you study the workflow carefully, there are many steps that can be automated. Even some other field can be filled in automatically. So sometimes people make mistake filling in the wrong code or wrong number because they don't understand the rule. Or sometimes the submission and email, all of these processes can be automated. These are minor tasks that normally use a lot of human. We can replace human agent with AI agent who can repeat these simple tasks, connect them as a workflow, and deploy it to work automatically. This is agentic AI. I borrowed this chart from a company. So if you want to create an agentic AI, for example, for customer support agentic AI, first, you need to know where your company take the data from, which channel you are using. And then from the inquiry channels, you need to have a master agent to orchestrate. It's basically say that you need to detect and interpret the question or inquiry to send these questions into certain buckets. You need to understand the agent's behavior. You need to understand the people's sentiment in order to classify this data and to measure whether if this answer can be answered automatically with AI or should they send it to human assistant. So all of these tasks can be connected into a workflow, and that is what agentic AI can do. Another interesting process is HR recruitment. I'm trying to use AI for recruitment, but we cannot do it simply like that. So we have to develop some of the system by ourselves. I am working a very new agency, so this is the very first 2 years of my organization, and we see new headcounts every year. In order to recruit people into our headcount system, we have lots of proposals and lots of sources. We have lots of new applications every day. So we only have one agent, one HR. In order for an HR to process everything by themselves, they have to work very hard, and we cannot let other people to do that because the rest of the people are already full-handed. So what we did was we asked our innovation team to use RPA and LLM to help them develop agentic AI to help facilitate these processes. Whenever we have an application in the email, we don't even need human response. We can use AI and send them to different departments and entries. We can even go deeper into their qualifications if it follows our announcement, so we can reject the mistake one, and we can even submit it to the director for them for the selection process. This can be done with the autonomous workflow with AI agents. And now you know that the world is getting into the world of agentic AI. Agentic sounds very simple, plus some generative. And when people start using more and more AI, there are more and more concerns, because imagine if the application submitted to you, you rejected some of the applications without any reason. They might lose even a fraction of the opportunity, and let alone maybe the new hire or maybe the newly graduated, they might get rejected more easily. So that leads us to the concern about AI governance. There are certain thresholds that we need to keep, and one of the thresholds is competitiveness and sustainability. Whenever we talk about the ecosystem, let's say any ecosystem, we need to find a way to help us balance the benefits of the company who will join us in the consortium, so they can compete more fairly and smoothly while sustaining the whole ecosystem. That's the basic, and that's governance, accountability, and transparency. Whenever you ask AI any question, does the system sensitive enough? Is the sensitive enough? But in order to make it sensitive enough, it has to be transparency. Transparency means traceable. You need to trace back to the source of the answer that you are using. If you ask important question, a lot of Thai people use ChatGPT for fortune telling. In that case, you don't need traceability. But if you ask something serious, something life or death, like health, and you are recommending people for self-treatment, that AI must be transparent enough to be traceable, so we know the source of the data. And that connects with compliance with law. At least we have PDPA and IP law. This is some of the basics law for the AI. And for example, who can validate whether if it compliance with the laws? This is one of the biggest issues. And there's security and privacy issue. Are you afraid that you are losing your personal data when you are using ChatGPT, and they will use your personal data to train other ChatGPT? Actually, all of these are done automatically, but your data has been aggregated with other people. Yes, some of your personal data slips away. It's possible, but it's not that people are seeing that this question, but system can still use your data to do something else. So that's quite scary, security-wise. Next, equality and fairness. Actually, this is the biggest issue when you talk about trust in AI. AI makes decisions, but the question is if it is equal and fair. Do you have any bias in your data set? If you use AI for application, there was a case in the past, they have to stop using AI because AI only choose the guy for the interview. And AI wasn't really biased, but the data they used to train the AI, they use a lots of guys' data, so the AI has the bias. Hence, we need to be very careful about equality and fairness, and also reliability, because in the end, human-centric decision-making might make it more compliant to the law. For example, when you talk about healthcare, you can use whatever AI as long as the doctor is the final call. If the final decision goes to the doctor, not AI, you can use whatever AI. AI just provide you the convenience. So if you ask me, I don't think AI can replace human being. Certainly, some of the human being who cannot use AI, you have a good chance to be replaced. And the reason is, are you going to use the same amount of people to do more work or less work? Right? We are not replacing the whole workforce, but we can reduce some of the headcounts. But on the opposite, right? We are pretty much agentic society because we are aging society and we have less growing population, and maybe AI is a necessity in the future. And speaking of bias in the data set, what do we mean by good data? Good data has to be non-biased and complete. It means that you have all the data you need. For example, if you want to study cancer, you need to have all the demographic, maybe Asian, maybe Black, maybe Caucasian, unless the data will be biased since from the beginning. And with biased data, AI will be biased and they might not be able to provide you the accurate data. A good set of data allows you to conduct fair and complete decision. And what do we mean by flawed data? Sometimes you might have obsolete old data. Sometimes we use imbalance. Sometimes you have imbalance in the data. You might have more data sets like white people's data rather than just black people data. And that makes the AI think that black people get sick more easily. So it's necessary to check the integrity of the data and to make sure that your data is good and well balanced as well as complete. So in practice, from the data that you have, from raw data, in order to develop the data into AI-ready data, there are certain processes that we need to verify. There's checks and balance process to make sure that your data is balanced and you cannot make it too balanced too. You need to have the right sampling. You have to follow some of the statistic rules and you need to make sure that you have conducted data governance. Everything must follow the governance structure in order to turn raw data into AI-ready data and to turn AI-ready data into AI-ready ethical data. So ethical is the key, such as, have you ever heard about guardrail? To prevent people from committing suicide, right? For example, or should it give you the personal data from the politicians? There must be some level of guardrail system in order to prevent AI from doing something not so ethical. And then in order to convert from ethical into responsible AI, you apply another layer of AI governance for ML and AI. And it will be the term that has become very popular. So how far can we go with the responsible AI? And whenever we talk about AI, we also have to talk about AI life cycle. At the moment, our country is pretty much in the first 3 steps. Collection of data, that's the beginning. And that applies. Actually, the first thing we need to do with the data that we need to clean and consolidate the data. We need to have certain level of integrity. We can use the automatic system to detect anomaly in the data sets. How far can we go? Consent, for example, if it's PDPA or consent. Sometimes data collection was done right, but data prep can go wrong. So I have a lot of data because we are working with the process. Sometimes I have the whole book, for example. You cannot use the whole book to train the AI. Like, you know that you cannot throw just the whole PDF into the AI. You need to clean the data before you make the data AI ready. And it takes a lot of manpower and resources. And then after preparing the data, we can use the prep data to train the model. But you have to go through the statistical bias too. You need to make sure that it is well verified. You need to check for bias. And then you need to evaluate the model. And when you evaluate the model, you need to make sure that the data set that you are using, you shouldn't use the same sets of data to test or back testing. This is called benchmark and standard testing. Testing standard is the final test for AI if they are just as if they are human being. So why AI lawyer in the United States tends to say that it passed the bar test within the first test because they are using the same bar test, but the bar test wasn't the same as the classes. So you need to have another set of data for testing. So the benchmark standard center at EDA and NetTech is working on. It doesn't help everybody yet, but it takes a lot of time and resource, but it will be soon. And last part is deployment. After deployment, you have to regularly check the answer and response from AI. So let me go through this quickly for data prep guideline. If you want to create an original model, okay, wait. Thai people don't design the model ourselves. Actually, there are existing model, but with the model itself, you cannot do anything. You need to collect the data, prep the data, and train the model to the point where the model become pre-trained. And only the pre-trained model can provide you the answers within the context that you want. So whenever we say that we build AI, we don't start with the AI algorithm, but we train them. The training part is very important, let me tell you. In order to deliver the data set that covers all quality and data lineage, which allow us to do data traceability. Actually, there are many quality criteria. It's up to the nature of the data you want. How can you check the accuracy. You can random check the accuracy of the data that you use for training, or you can check the source and credibility of the sources of the data sets. So you can check the quality in so many aspects. And after you have done that, you can continue with the data labeling to prepare for the data training. And after we train the model, we have to check for the bias, certainly. Investigate inheritance bias. Let me share with you LLM examples because we are working on that. You will find that there are certain common pre-trained data sets. Actually, practically all brand common pre-trained data sets, they use common crawl. Common crawl is like using the bot to crawl the data from the internet text, like from the blogs and websites, and you use those data to train the AI so they understand the language. Actually, we have documents in 3 or 4 languages in just one document. So we need to retrieve and crawl these data in order to train the AI. The bias come from the common crawl because all of the commercialized AI are using the same system. The problem is distribution of the language. 44% English. Can you guess where Thailand is? You cannot see it here. Thailand is down here. Only 0.4% used in the trained data. So whenever you say anything, we are a very small minority and with lots of cultural bias in the data set, automatically done by the system. One of the most popular example is cultural context. AI, which was trained by overseas country, have to train with the cultural context. This is the actual exam that we use the AI. We used to test this temple fair and practices. We asked them why people carry the sand and donate it to the temple. The majority of the AI will say either A or D. I don't know because I guess that AI knows because I choose AI. My AI choose this one. They say that to prepare for religious festival, they are building sand castle. But in reality, they donate the sand for the temple restoration. This is the main reason why we create this sand temple. So the villagers can help the temple to restore the temple. This is for me my cultural context. There are so many other examples. So in order for AI to give you the answer, they need to understand more than the language, but also the cultural context.
So when we try to train them, we have to use data, this actual usage, and then you can do evaluation properly. The actual usage is what when you do, we use the common data set, just as the foreign countries. Our team, as in BDI and also the government and also the higher education ministry and many other ministry joining together, we work in the name of the public and the government. And every Thai, we get the text. Also, the OCS gave us all the books. The National Library gave us all the books, and also media that donated a lot of press and final official documents. Also, ministries send us all the ministerial documents. We get diversity of languages, genre of text, and we understand deeper, like what is it that we can actually use. But it's not just pulling text from PDF and then you can translate like accurately. There's more than that, but this is the diversity of what we're looking and what we're doing. Okay, so when you are the AI with the brands, what do you have to consider? You have to consider sensitive data and personal data. That's your main thing. Ownership of the input and output. It should be like owned by the person who, train you. And if you want to look into the content, is it going to violate the law at all? The owner is what? The owner is the one who create the platform, what you're doing. Is it law compliance? Is it verifiable or not? Accuracy is correct or not? This is something that we are discussing deeply. If anybody can do AI, anybody would come up with that and anybody would sell that. But is it like controlled by the laws or the government properly? Is it not biased? Like healthcare, you have the Food and Drug Administration, like FDA. It's the same as the FDA actually in the food world, in the healthcare world. It is something like that. It's not just the law. Every country is looking into this. We're going to go through this quite slowly. Provider use input data to do service. That means what? If you release the chat and you chat with the product, you can use the input to train AI. If you don't do AI, you're going to forget about that. It's not going to progress. But the way to do it, you have to look into the law of each country as well. I can tell you that now Chinese AI is gonna progress a lot because restriction in terms of law and law enforcement, we have to have that. If we don't have law and law enforcement, then we kind of slow things down, right? But if we do it properly, it's gonna leap ahead. So before we deploy for the customers, and if you're an insurance company, you have to be sure before you answer anybody, right? Let's say customer asks you question if they can claim or not for certain disease, and you said yes. And you can't do that. A lot of people did make a mistake. Air Canada last year made a mistake. Some people some people bought ticket and then they spend money and at the end they can't get on board. That's the responsible AI. You said yes when you could have just said no. And another time, risk assessment. Thailand don't have the act to control AI yet. European doesn't have that yet. At the moment, we only have guideline to do risk assessment, whether what we can do, high risk or low risk. If there's high risk, you have to be more caution. If it's a lower, you can be a bit okay with that. Thailand, we have the copyright law and personal data, we call PDPA. Intellectual property right, we're still looking on that. Actual intellectual property, we're still unsure about that. If you ask AI to gen image for you, what kind of copyright does it belong to? Because AI has to pull some images from some pot, and then that pot kind of like add you into the image, etc. So what kind of copyright does it belong to? Is it from the artist or the AI platform? The borderline between the work, blending three, four images to put together, is it belong to whom? Data protection and privacy, that's another story. How do you comply PDPA? And the user, if they use it wrong, is it liable and to whom? So if you're going to do AI to sell in a sensitive topic, you have to discuss that further. I'm leaving here is that best practices, if you're going to come up with the AI or launch an AI to sell it to people, first, terms and policy services has to be clear. Avoid inputting sensitive or confidential information. You have to cut out all the personal stories. And we got a lot of cases from the court. And the case cost is the open data published on website. But they're concerned they have to take out all the names in the script. If it's the Mr. or Miss, it's going to be Mr. A, Mr. B, etc., not the real name. We have to look into the sensitive information, how clean is it? The output verification before use, how is it like? If you don't understand the context well enough, this is very AI governance lawyer, this is a new thing. We have to look into policy change. So may I share, leaving it here, last thing, thank you. Audio Jungle.